Yo, you're listening to a HipKnokerZ production. Get up! HipKnokerZ on the beat.
6870. Alright, it has a nice little cut here. Alright, has a little bit of that mud. Not really, it's kind of down at the 500 right around here. Alright, and it has some sound and some little bit of highs in the 5K. Now when I put the let's look at this one. This one has more bottom end. Nothing is over 2K on this one. This one is more of the lower end kick. Again, it's actually peaking about 10 decibels under the other kick. So we got this one at the 50s, whereas the other one was peaking. This one was peaking at around 60. So the first thing that I noticed is that he has two kicks. One of them that's kind of peaking around 60 with a little bit high end. The second one, which is the lower kick, is peaking around 50 with no high end. And when you play them together, you get to see how they're how these two sounds play with each other, how they go back and forth. All right, you kind of see it there in a sense. Notice how they both have in common that 300 to 400 area here. All right, but you could see top bottom. You can see the little bump. And because I see that, what I want to do as a mixer, or what I think will be the correct thing when it comes to what I'm listening to, is I want to make sure that they're not getting in each other's space. So I'm going to cut out a little piece of what they call, I call it a little piece of their house. You know, you don't want one person living in another person's house. All right, I've heard it said as spectrum or audio real estate. Basically you get the picture. If someone lives at 60, you got that kick coming in at 60, then you want to make sure that he's living at 60 and not so much in 50. Whereas the second kick, he's living at 50, you want to make sure that he's not going too much over at 60. So it makes it cleaner, and you can do this and you can get that by using a parametric EQ. So for the first kick, what I did here was that I peaked around the 70 to take it up. Alright, this is the one that was at the 60, and I also brought it up at 4,000, close to 5,000, because I wanted to have a more high-end sound. Alright, like a higher pitch sound. So this is the sound without the parametric EQ. And now I'm going to show you the sound with it. Alright, it gave it, this one's kind of hollow. This one gave it more thump. Now, because this one has more thump, the other one is going to also have to be thumpier. Kind of cuts it through the mix, gives it more presence. So I'm gonna keep that one like that. Here's the other one. Now look at I brought this one up around a little bit under 50. This one's at 48. You know, 48, 50, 51. I wanted to give it some of that oomph. But I also wanted to give it some of that 300, get that box sound, trying to make it more present. And then I cut at around the 1500, close to the 2000, around that area. I kind of sweep this. So this happened to sound like the sweet spot. And I wanted to continue with the cut here to make sure that it doesn't have much high end. I wanted to keep it low. Alright, so this is what it sounds without it. And now with it. Kind of gives it more of a thump. So I'm going to put both of them together now so you can hear them. Both of them are hard hitting. Without the parametric EQs, they sounded like this. They really didn't have much of a tail. The kicks didn't last that long. And so I felt that this will bring it out into the mix more by giving it more of a tail. So there you go. You get that more of that lower sound. Alright, so that's the first thing that I looked at. Other than that, he has 2 snares. Let's look at these 2 snares real quick. Of course I put a parametric EQ, but let's look at where this snare lives. Alright, and let me take off the parametric EQ. Alright, let's look at this one. He has this one panned to the left a little bit. Probably, I don't know, around the 11:30, 11:15 hit. Alright, killed off that bottom end. Very good practice. You don't want the snare getting too muddy with the kicks. The kicks are kicking, so you don't want any of that low end in there. Alright, and here's the other snare. Has a lower sound, has a little bit of sound at that 50. I don't like that, so I'm gonna end up cutting that. But this one is the lower sound. Low, high, low, high. So what I did with the parametric EQ is that I wanted to complement that. I raised up around where the upper mids are at the 2000 to give them a little bit more clarity. Continue to cut pretty much right at anything under 200. Right where it was getting a good box sound for the snare. And I cut out a little bit of the high just so I could continue to be crisp. Here is the other snare. Again, I killed off at 140, but I brought this one up a little bit higher to make it resonate more with the other snare. So this is the kicks and the snares together with all of their little stuff that I did to it. There was this little rim shot. You really can't hear it too much, but I went ahead and I cut off the lows because it was registering a little bit on the lows, and I brought it up right around 2000 so that I can have more of a clangy sound to it, so it can pierce through the mix, because it wasn't that loud, and I think there's a reason why you didn't want it that loud. So let's look at the hi-hats now. Look at the crash. I cut off everything under pretty much 1,000, you know, having a low roll off. And I wanted to bring that sizzle, so I brought that in a little bit. If I were to take that off, just so you can hear it. This is without sizzle. That's with sizzle. And it's a very subtle change, but you can hear that difference in the overall mix, just to bring it up a little bit. And that's another thing, you should concentrate on cutting more than raising. I have just found that when it comes to the higher instruments, which is you know, hi-hats and stuff like that, it actually brings more sizzle when you bring it up just a little bit. And I think this one I only brought up like let me see, I brought it up like maybe 2 or 3 dBs, which is not a big change. Alright, now we're going to listen to everything together. Alright, so that's the percussion. Now, let's concentrate on the rest of the stuff. Here's this melody going. This is the bass of the melody. Which he probably just put it on a separate channel because I can still hear it with these 2 verses. But he did something here that's kind of more, you know, this is more spatial than anything. But he got 2 of the same samples and he put one panned all the way to the left and one panned all the way to the right. What that ends up doing is that you're gonna get most of it if they're the same volume and the same sample. You're just gonna get a middle sound, because that's what stereo is. The middle sound is the left and the right shooting out the same signal at the same volume. But they're not completely identical,